Welcome to Kiwi Kaimoana, and this is the TrueKit Discovery inflatable boat review. This is my TrueKit Discovery 3.3 metre. I've owned this boat for about 2 years now, so I thought it was about time and gave a good review. This boat's registered with the Coast Guard. You can see the numbers on the back, and when you register it, you give it a name. This boat is affectionately known as Discovery. For this review, we'll start with some specs, then we'll move into an overview, then pros and cons, and we'll finish with some closing thoughts. Alright, time for the spec list. We all love a good spec list. This is the 3.3 metre version. TrueKit also sell this in a 2.8 and 4 metre version. And you can get the Discovery model, which is the flat front, and the Navigator model, which is more of a traditional inflatable. This boat's horsepower range is 5 to 15. It's got a 15 horsepower passing on the back right now. I originally started with a 9.8 Tohatsu. After taking it out a few times with a couple of divers, realised that's drastically underpowered for this boat. If you're going to go out on this boat, and you're going out by yourself, then like 5 horsepower is enough, like if it was yourself on like a flat lake or something. But to load this boat up with 2 divers and dive gear, you must get the 15 horsepower. To buy this boat new, you're looking at around about $4,000 if you buy the boat and the jockey wheels on the back, the quick lock wheels. And then getting an outboard like a 15 horsepower new, you're looking at like another 3.5. So in total, yeah, you're looking at about $7,500 to buy this thing new. If you get yourself some sort of trailer to put it on, maybe you're looking at another $1,000 for that, so $8,500. Going second hand is a much better option. If you can get one second hand, you might pay between say $3,000 and $6,000, depending on the model, whether or not they're selling it with an outboard, which outboard's with it. If you really want an inflatable and you don't mind second hand, then I would recommend going for one of these second hand. Alright, time for the overview. We'll go from tip to butt, bow to stern. At the front of the boat, you've got the nice flat front. We've got a bridle harness attached here. If you're going to get this boat, and especially if you're going to use the jockey wheels to roll it up and down the beach or the boat ramp, you're going to want to have one of these bridle harnesses. At the time that I'm making this video, you can't buy them. You basically got to make them yourself, or you can get in touch with TrueKit and ask them if they'll make you one. You can see with this harness, it's a combination of carabiner clips, splicing, and a length of hose in the middle to function as the handle. Really handy thing to have when you're talking about moving the boat around. The boat's got a mooring rope permanently attached to it on the starboard side. I don't use it too much, so I just sort of loop it up and just keep it tied up. But if you want to tie your boat up to the wharf, you know, mooring rope. Along the side of the boat, you've got these grab ropes. Good if you're gonna, you know, pull yourself up along the side of the boat instead of going up the front. And holding these ropes on, these little metal shackles are really underrated, and they're really good. Like, I can't tell you the number of times that I've clipped on a catch bag or the end of the spear gun or the power knife or something onto these little wee D-rings. These are bloody awesome. The boat comes fitted with 2 rib ports in the middle of the boat, either side, which you would normally use with your oars. But on the back of this boat, I've actually attached extra rib ports and Railblazer G-clamps for holding onto the spear gun. So the underside of the boat has got these rub strips, protects the bottom of the boat from gravel, sand, whatever it is you're pulling it up. Side of the boat has another rubbing strip along the side, and along the entire length of the boat you've got these red grab handles, which are really awesome. Good for pulling yourself up onto the boat. The boat comes stock standard with 2 aluminium seats. On the rear seat I've made up a large lump of foam rubber, and I've just zip tied it onto the seat because the seat's pretty low, it sits quite low. So adding a little bit of height and adding a little bit of comfort makes for a more comfortable ride. So the fuel tank, sometimes it sits in the back, sometimes it sits in the front. It's very important, put as much weight as you can up the front of the boat. This boat's like a kite, like as soon as you hit the throttle, the front of the boat just lifts up. So get as much weight in the front as you can. So we've got the passing 15 horsepower here, pretty reliable motor, tends to start pretty much first go every time. I wouldn't get too wrapped up about the fact that it's a Chinese brand name. Yes, Yamahas are good, yes, Suzuki's are good, but you know, as it is with a lot of Chinese products, the quality has really improved over the last 10-20 years. This is a 2015 model passing, and for the most part it hasn't really skipped a beat. It's a pretty good outboard, and it takes Yamaha propellers. Time for the pros and cons. Pros. Probably the biggest pro of this is its portability. It comes in a couple of bags, you pull it out, you inflate it, you've got a boat. When you're done, you either deflate it, pack it back in the bag, or, put it up on the trailer, take it home, clean it, ready for the next use. One of the big pros of this boat is the Velmex fabric and the thermo-welded seams. That's one of the real big selling points that TrueKit uses, and their main competition is Tangaroa, which is another inflatable boat. The Velmex fabric is really, really tough stuff. Like, I've driven this boat over mussel beds with like sharp mussels sticking up, and it may put a few scratches into the fabric, but I've never had the fabric rupture. I've never had the fabric pop. Wouldn't want to go stabbing it with a bloody dive knife. Wouldn't want to risk getting fish hooks in it, but people do go fishing off of these boats. You just got to be careful. Anything sharp you bring into this boat, treat it like it's something that can pop the boat, and just be careful. Down here at the bottom of the transom, we've got our slots, we've got our cutouts. So you're not going to need a bilge pump, because if you accidentally flood this boat, which I have done in the past, I've had the water right up to the level of my hand here, almost up to the top of the transom, it's just going to drain out. That's bloody good. Self-draining boat. Another real big selling point is the valves. So we've got these push-in, push-out valves. Now with a lot of inflatable boats, they have the twist style, so you push in, you twist, but you're never really sure, like, which way do you twist? You can never figure it out. This one is just push in, push out. Easy, real easy. I love these valves. These are excellent valves. And another huge one, and this is really related to the specific model, the Discovery, as opposed to the Navigator. The Discovery has this big flap front, which makes it super easy to pull yourself up out of the water when you're in the water diving. If you wanted to, you can just pull yourself up over the sides as well, but it's even easier, pull yourself up the front of this boat. Alright, more importantly than the pros, it's time for the cons. This boat is heavy for the size. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking inflatable boat. It's lightweight. Trust me, this thing ain't light. The weight of the hull by itself is about 37 kilograms. Add on your 15 horsepower, you're talking another 37 kilograms. Add on your fuel, you're talking like another 10 kilograms. Add another 10 or 20 for miscellaneous items like emergency bag, water, fuel, anchor box, etc, etc. You're up to about 100 kilograms. You ain't going to lift this thing up, even with a couple of people, and carry it down to the beach. So you're going to need the jockey wheels if you're not using a trailer. When you're in the process of rolling it back up, you've deflated it at the beach, and you roll it up, and you put it back into the bag, the entire boat just gets covered with filth. It gets covered with dirt. And then you go to pull it out the next day, the next time, and it's covered in dirt. So as careful as you are, as careful as you try to be, deflating this boat and packing it up into the bag at the boat ramp where there's dirt and gravel and grass, etc., the boat is going to get filthy. And when you open it up the next time, it's filthy from the last time you used it. Which is why these days I normally use a trailer. I've got a Blue Garden trailer. It's a basic trailer. It does the job. As stated before, you need high horsepower with this boat. You're dreaming if you think you're going to put a 5 horsepower on and then you're going to go rocketing out and into the open ocean and down the coast. No. There's not a lot of space in this boat. Right now, when it's empty, it looks like there's heaps of space. It looks like there's heaps. Trust me, there's not a lot of space. Once you start putting one diver in, another diver in, a couple of catch bags, anchor box, 2 sets of fins, 2 sets of weight belts, a couple of spear guns, a couple of floats, this entire boat fills up real quick, just like that. So you end up doing what I did and you end up attaching rail blazer ports onto the side so that at least you can try to carry your spear guns on the pontoons of the boat. And this boat is wet. I find it really amazing that you take this out onto the ocean and as soon as you hit the wave, it just splashed. The entire thing just gets covered in water. I take my wife out in this boat a couple of times and she gets wet every time and she complains, so she doesn't really like going out on it. This is a very, very wet boat. Do not expect to stay dry. It is a very, very wet boat. You will get wet even in calm conditions using this boat. So the first and most obvious comparison you could make here is to a Tangaroa. The Tangaroa's, use glued seams, whereas this is thermo-welded seams. So over the course of an extended period of time, years out in the sun, the thermo-welded seam is always going to hold, whereas a glued seam will eventually fail. Another thing about the tacker cats, they've got an open transom. That's got a closed transom. I'm not convinced that an open transom is a good idea. Honestly, with the amount of stuff that you put in the boat, just in the course of diving, you're going to be putting stuff on the floor of the boat, like your gloves, your dive goggles, whatever, and having an open transom, having gaps in the back, I wonder whether you lose stuff out the back. But there are other options. You could go for a rib. The main thing is, this one's got a flat bottom. A rib has usually the more traditional V-shaped hull. The more traditional V-shaped hull is going to perform much better in the open ocean. That's what you should expect with a boat like this. It's a catamaran design, so you've got the two pontoons, and then just above the two pontoons in the middle you've got the flat bottom. It's not very good for rough water. It really is not. So of course another thing you could compare it to would be a plastic boat or an aluminium boat, such as a Mac 360 or an Osprey, something like that, or a small Stavy craft. Buying a new or a second-hand version of this boat versus a second-hand version of, say, a Mac 360, it's going to be similar in price, but compared to an aluminium boat, the main thing this has over it is it's simply just cheaper. To get an aluminium boat similar size, 3.5 meters, on a trailer with a similar sort of an outboard motor, you're talking $10,000. Getting one of these second-hand, probably half that. So is this the best inflatable dive boat? I don't know. It might be. I mean, there's other good inflatable boats out there. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's the best. But if it's not the best, it's bloody good. It's one of the best. And if you love inflatable boats, if you want an inflatable boat, for whatever reason, whatever the reason is you're deciding on inflatable, this is the one to get. So do you still need to know more information? Have I not covered everything? Well, have a look at this video over here. That's a 1 year later review after owning this boat for a year. Or down there, that's how to set up the boat, you know, from bag to boat. Or this video down here, this is one of my favorite dive videos where we take the true kit out in action. Thanks for coming. On your way out, don't forget to like and subscribe.